Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Hello and warm welcome to yet another exciting edition of the Final Take with me, Seni MK Marina. Here is a look at what's coming up. Unpacking policies driving national development and socio-economic advances in the Gambia. We talk with Dr. Sulayman Njie on the country's pathway to building sustained growth, examining policy framework launched by the Barrow administration. Also coming up on the final take, a special conversation on investing in sport with Muhammad Jagana, who is vying for the top job at the Gambian National Olympic Committee, GNOC, as the sporting body head to the Congress. That's the final take, exploring the emerging insights in news and current affairs in the Gambia and around the world. When we come back right after this break, thanks for joining us.
Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Welcome back, wherever you are joining. This is the final take with me, Seni MK Marina, from our virtual studios here in Seattle, Washington, United States. Let's venture to sport, engaging our first guest, Muhammad Jagana, who rose from a professional background as a chartered accountant to a distinguished entrepreneurial journey. A diligent organizer and social advocate, Mr. Jagana has been instrumental in pioneering advances in financial sector with a particular impact, shaping the digital payment industry and technology sector across Africa. Beside digital governance initiative, Mr. Jagana is also a sport administrator who owns Ouagadougou Football Club, a second division team where he became a majority shareholder in 2023. Jagana is also a member of the GNOC, where he's aiming for the top job in the Gambia's athletics as the sporting body heads to Congress. Let's get into the conversation. Many thanks, Mr. Jagana, for your time. Quickly, take us through your history in sport investment in the Gambia.
Thank you, Seni. Maybe I should also start by thanking you and your team for having us today. And we really appreciate the efforts you're doing in terms of enlightening the Gambian populace, both at home and in the diaspora. Before I go into sports investment, maybe I should just give a little bit of background of my sports trials.
Good.
I'm not a very famous sportsman. I've been involved in sports since the days of St. Augustine's High School. I was part of the basketball, handball, and volleyball. Which I really enjoyed growing up playing sports. Later on in my career, we've been supporting quite a handful of sports activities across the Gambia, including the Bakau Nawetan in partnership with then the Bakau Chair, Paco of KMC. We also sponsored the Burfoot Marathon, which was being managed by Max Jallo, the late Max Jallo.
Yeah, I remember.
It was introduced to us by Kausu Jabi, a classmate of mine from St. Augustine's. Other than that, we've been involved in various sports sponsorship because we feel that there's an opportunity for young people who might not be good in terms of education, but they have certain abilities that they can unleash their potential and their talent. Thank you.
Mr. Jagana, can we achieve a desired result without adequate investment in sport? And does it provide an alternative for young people seeking a breakthrough?
For sports to be successful, it needs private sector, government, and non-governmental. And I think really for it to be successful, we need to sit down and redraw the map and look at it and say, hey, look, we need to invest more in infrastructure, which is the responsibility of the government. We need to invest more in terms of talent development and talent acquisition, which is the responsibility of the associations, which are under the umbrella of the Gambia National Olympic Committee. But for that to be successful, we believe that certain things have to be in place. And those things are what we have in our manifesto: strong governance, better sports, our women, our strength, the Gambia Big Games, Heritage Gambia, and Fund the Dream, Goal for Gambia. These are things that we would want to talk to you about tonight.
Okay. Mr. Jagana, you have constituted a very strong team, to seek for the highest office in the National Olympic Committee election, which is on the way coming. Tell us, what are your campaign promises for the Gambian athletes? How do you want to take this body? How do you intend to, take the GNOC to another level in terms of bringing in top-notch athletes that will represent the Gambia? Because just recently you were part of the delegation in the Paris Olympics, and a population of 2.5 million, we were able to only, take 8 athletes to this international Olympic competition in Paris. What is your campaign promise?
Well, let me start with the Paris Olympics. You might be surprised that there are bigger countries with bigger resources, bigger population that took less than 5 athletes. So really, Gambia has achieved well and done well, but we think that we can do more. How? We'll go through that through the manifesto. But what we think is our whole direction is empowering Gambians athletes and inspiring global excellence. Because today you have Gambians all over the world.
Right.
Part of our manifesto is Heritage Gambia. Through Heritage Gambia, we want to tap to all the Gambians, and I think this is where Dr. Sulayman and yourself need to come in and say, hey, this Gambian has a potential. He or she is born in the US or Europe or somewhere else. He or she might be number 4 in the US, but only the first 3 qualify. But if they come to Gambia, they'll be top, but they'll be competing at the same level. We saw that happen with Team South Sudan and the US in terms of the basketball. Everybody thought that the Americans would just come and sweep the floor with South Sudan, but man, America won the game, but they sweat to really win the game. So these are some of the things that we have as part of our manifesto through Heritage Gambia.
Okay, can you take us through your manifesto, because you have a very strong strategy document that aim to, holistically improve our sport in the country. Take us through the steps of that manifesto.
I mean, the first pillar or priority that we want to look into is governance, because we think that strong governance will provide better sports. And when we talk about governance, we're not only talking at GNOC level, but at federation level. We want to make sure that each federation has implemented a comprehensive training program and a strong leadership skill base. There needs to be transparency in how associations are run, and it has to be merit-based. It's not a group of us just sitting in the association for decades and nobody knows what we're doing. And today, most associations need to look at themselves and say, hey, what is our purpose of existence? Your purpose of existence is the athletes, not the executives. So how can we bring the athletes in the front? That is one of the things that we want to push through good governance and better sports. We also want to push through our women, our strength. What that means is, in Gambia, one of the biggest contributors to our sports success are women. I don't know whether you know that saying. From people like Gina Bash to Sanu, well, you saw in the ladies there, and others. But then also, these are people that there are probably hundreds of Gina Bash. How do you pull out that talent and bring them in the front? Well, if you look at all those athletes there, it's almost equal representation, both men and women. But then if you go into the structure of governance, you hardly see any woman at the top. That's why we, in our manifesto, we're not only saying it, we're walking the talk by bringing in Fatim Baji to be the Secretary General, which is one of the most powerful positions, and she will be part of the management team that make decisions. We feel that when young women sit down and see her, this would inspire them to also look at how to get into sports from the classroom to the boardroom. We don't want women to be missing in the decision making. That's why we got Fatim there on the table. Heritage Gambia, I mentioned that earlier. We want to establish a centralized platform to connect diasporic athletes with local teams and local associations because there must be a lot of good Gambians out there. But we need
Absolutely.
to go out there and reach out to them. We want to develop programs where the diasporic athletes can serve as cultural ambassadors to also encourage other Gambian heritage people to come and join us. As you can see in this photo that you're showing, three of those people have diaspora link. One of
Yeah.
them is based in Europe, two of them are based in US.
Yeah,
But
I'm
these are
seeing Njie, the judoka guy too. Yes.
exactly who won silver medal at the Commonwealth. But how many of them can we encourage to do that? We want to talk about fund the dream. Anything you want to do in sports, it requires funding. We cannot only rely on government. Government is doing their part. But I think we should be able to sit with government and say, look, we need an extra bit of funding here because this kind of game has a potential to bring gold or silver to the Gambia. So I think we need to look at how do we realign the priorities in the funding.
Yeah.
Also establish what we call an athlete fund to provide scholarships and training for athletes locally so that internationally when they go in, they have a good base in terms of their education so that when they go become athletes, they also know how to get themselves professionally trained. Well, that was Gina in my office there. You seem to have a very good archive.
Yes, because I'm just trying to make sure that at least we are in line with what you are saying, so we can
Yes.
bring in memories of those people on the show. Mr. Jagana, you touch about how do we encourage.
I have one more item that you just want to talk about, then we can go in, if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind.
Go ahead.
That
Yes,
is
sir.
Gambia Beach Games. Saying we want to develop and implement a signature beach sports event each year that the finals would happen around the tourism period and in partnership with the Gambia Tourism Authority, Gambia hotels, and people that have stakes in the tourism. We have amazing beaches. People come here for holidays.
Yeah.
They must sport into us. So we want to partner with the hotel industry and say, hey, we want to do this kind of sports between November and December. But then the Gambian teams that would qualify to go to the finals would have to get themselves prepared over the year. So we'll have a championship across the country. So the finals would happen during these things. We would engage local communities so that they can be aware that there's a potential for young people to have an outlet in terms of sports. We want to launch a global market with the Gambia Tourism Board to advertise Gambia as a sports destination for tourism because sports tourism is one of the biggest income generating channels that Gambia is not exploring. So these are some of the things that we have in our manifesto. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Jagana, you talk about a very important, like how do we tap into diaspora Gambians, like Gambians athletes who are born in the diaspora to either Gambian diasporians or foreign country. We have seen that during the last Olympic, at least 3-4 people who represented the Gambia are from the diaspora, like Sanu, like Njie, and others. But there's a problem. A lot of these people, are not, are really encouraged to give back to their country because they feel that the Gambia didn't have the infrastructure and the resources, to make them, win games or medals in international competition. How do you intend to bridge this gap, looking at the talent that the Gambians have both home and abroad?
If you look at the French basketball team and the South Sudan basketball team, most of them are not based in France or South Sudan, but they have a structure that encourages them to come and play for the national team. It is true at the moment Gambia doesn't have those facilities, but if we identify a potential athlete through our talent acquisition platform, which we would release online so that people can register there, we hope through our partnership networks, we can even have people train locally where they are but represent Gambia. For example, Fine Jai, even Gina at one time was in France to train because
Yeah.
there's some performance centers that are not
Yeah, and
available.
Ibrahim Kamara. Yeah.
Exactly, Ibrahim Camera also. There's some high performance centers that are not available in Africa. But then the talent is here. So I think we'll have to start with the soft side, that is identifying the people, and then eventually look into the hard side, that is the infrastructure. But we cannot say that we have to wait for infrastructure to start this thing. It's not going to work.
So, Mr. Jagana, when you look at the athletics, also, it's more focused in the urban Gambia and forgetting about the rural Gambia. Do you have plans to engage, and recruit more people from rural Gambia? Because these are talented athletes in the rural Gambia. I went to school in Armitage, and then normally we have inter-schools, competition, and you see very skillful young athletes, but after graduation, they don't have any means to pursue their dream. What's your plan for those in rural Gambia in terms of athletics?
This is where, through governance structure, we will help national associations. Because remember, the GNOC does not go directly to tap athletes. The
Yeah.
athletes are tapped through their various associations and federations. So this is why we want to strengthen the capacity of the various associations and federations and partner with government so that we can have a national talent acquisition program. So today, if somebody is coming from URR and you're very good at running, how do we help you develop to be part of the national team to run for the Gambia? Because at the end of the day, if that person, that young boy or young girl wins a medal, they're going to be carrying the Gambian flag. There's no
Right.
flag like West Coast or Sierra. So that's why I think we should really implore ourselves and look at what it says. It says the Gambia National Olympic Committee. It
Yes.
doesn't say the Banjul Olympic Committee, and that is one of the plans that we have to explore expanding beyond the greater Banjul area. We do understand the reality in terms of infrastructure and that stuff, but we think that there's certain sports it's easy to help develop talent without much infrastructure, but eventually the infrastructure component has to be addressed.
Yes, the infrastructural component has to be addressed, and that is one of your key areas when elected into office. Mr. Jagana, you have immense experience in leadership, which include a successful tenure as the president of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry from 2012 to 2019. What's your vision? What's your vision for Gambian athletes, and their ally associations, and tell us more about the critical priorities you aim to address to promote sport if elected?
Well, Shane, I became successful at the Gambia Chamber of Commerce not because of what I did. It was a teamwork. That's why we selected a team that has experience in diplomacy, a team that has experience in grassroots sports, a team that has experience in entrepreneurship, because we think that today global sports should be looked out as a business, not a local you get play attire here or take warga warga. That's why we have the team that is being put together. Within our first 100 days, we want to build a strategic plan for the next quadrennial. That is all the way to LA 2028. But in between, there will be a lot of events and championship, and we want to work with local federations and associations to implement this thing and trickle it down to them. At the end of the day, the athletes are our priority, and we want to bring them to international global excellence. It's not like a Gambian athlete standard, but if you're going to fly the Gambian flag, we want you to be the same standard as Hussein Bolt.
Okay. Mr. Jagana, this might be a little bit outside, but it's all part of sport. Yesterday, the Gambia played a very crucial game, the qualifiers for the next AFCON, expected to be held in Morocco. We were eliminated by a little known Comoros. At least we have some advantage against them. What's your reaction to this disqualification? Because fans are angry right now. They said after 4 years, the Gambia still cannot have a certified independent stadium. Do you have plans to partner with other sporting associations like GFF to seek funds to see, or the Ministry of Youth, to ensure that we have this infrastructure in place? Because it's shameful to say that after, after 7 years after the change, still the country cannot have its own, stadium where international competitions like football can be played. What's your take on this? And how do you intend to work with partners to address this key challenge facing our sport in the Gambia?
I'm saying you may not be aware, but the Gambia National Olympic Committee covers the Gambia Football Federation. They are members.
Wow.
It's all sports, from football to archery to every kind of thing. We do understand the challenges that are faced, and I have invested in football. I'm not a good football player. While in school, I wanted to make sure that it's either the ball that would pass or the player, but not both of them. So they kicked me out of the football pitch. A lot of the fans are disappointed, but we should also look back and say to our boys, thank you for the great effort that they have done. To be very honest, we have really improved in terms of what we have been in the last 10 years, but then the infrastructure is a challenge. So as part of our plans, we do plan to sit with government and also look at certain infrastructure, not only for football, but I think but there's a lot of small sports. Let's say table tennis, badminton, taekwondo,
Cricket,
all of these little sports that has potential in Gambia, but they have no place to play it, because most of these things you have to play it inside a hall. So one of our first priorities is to develop a scheme whereby government and the private sector would be invited to partner with the NOC and my board to see how we can create an environment or a facility that some of these sports can use. And we hope that we'll get a medal somewhere before LA 2028. I've said it, football is a fantastic game. It's a great game, but it's not the game that would bring us gold medal. But we do hope that the boys next time would qualify and at least get to the finals.
Mr. Jagana, we have a lot of hidden sport and hidden talent in the country that deserve real recognition. I had this conversation with a colleague of mine yesterday, that why are we focusing so much on football when we have talents in other areas like cricket, basketball? Our basketball recently went for a competition and they did well. They did very well. The cricket went to South Africa. They also did well. Why are we not putting more resources in these other sporting areas if we are not successful in other sporting disciplines like football? How do you intend to revolutionize that aspect to see that at least we invest in cricket, handball, basketball, beach volleyball, you name them? Because these are all part and parcel of the GNOC's mandate as the umbrella organization of all these sporting federations and associations in the country.
I mean, Shani, that's a valid point. I think one of the fundamental challenges we have is the culture. Because it's very easy to play football. You can just kick anyone. If you have an orange, you can play.
But Mr. Jagana, with the easiness to play football, cannot still play football, even though he is having a second division team, right?
But I know how to play basketball and volleyball and handball. So, I cannot be an all-rounder in all of it. But I do agree with you. I think this is one of some of the programs that we have as our plans to sit with government and say, look, if we allocate, let's say, 10% of what we give football, spread it to some of the other games, I can tell you by 2028, Gambia will be known as a destination for sports in a whole lot of other channels other than football. I mean, the guys have done well. We hope and wish that they have gone past that stage. But the reality is they have not, and we hope that next time Gambia will move further up.
Mr. Jagana, you have a great passion for sport and community service. Take us through some of your contribution in community leadership and sporting development, and how do you intend to put these issues, going forward, should you be elected as the new president of the GNOC?
If I'm elected president of GNOC, the first task I do is to make sure you organize a walk for health for all the Gambians in Seattle. Because I'm one of the founding, it's serious. I mean, I'm one of the founders of Walk for Health Gambia. I don't know whether you know that.
Yes.
I started that with Brahma Deba and Sirif Gomez.
Yeah.
Because I think that a healthy nation is a much stronger nation. A is a more productive nation. A healthy nation is a more educated nation. So one of the programs we plan to do is expand our mass sports. Mass sports means where people would get involved in sport, not for competition, but to be healthy. For example, walk for health, run for health, and engage businesses to encourage their employees and their family members to go out and be taking walks. Go to schools and encourage young kids to take walks. I was at CBEC 2 days ago to give a talk on sports education. And I did mention that if you are healthy, you can study longer and focus. So sports is not only for competitiveness, but it's for health. And this is some of the things that we want to discuss and implement during our quadrennial tenure.
Mr. Jagana, I know, corruption and lack of accountability have a significant impact on our country's journey towards sport development. How do you intend to tackle this? If you are elected as the president of the GNOC, because our sporting, organizations are confronted with a lot of allegations of corruption, lack of accountability. How do you intend to handle this head on to ensure that our country get on its feet towards success in sports?
Shane, as we started, the first thing we talked about is good governance, better sports. And it talks about transparency and accountability. And that's why we have nominated Mas Manjang, who is the Chief Financial Officer of EcoBank and Business Manager, to be our. We think that based on his experience and global level of competence, he should be able to help the entire board and the entire Gambian National Association to be very transparent in our reporting and financial transactions. The other thing is, when I was president of the Chamber of Commerce, I came in and made sure that we did publish our annual accounts to the public. And this is some of the things that we would want to encourage the GNOC to do, to basically share our annual accounts so that people can see the money is coming. Although it's little at the moment, we hope it would grow, and our priorities would be on the athletes. So we're going to establish the Athletes Commission, whereby the athletes will be part of the board. They have a representative on the board, and they will see how this money is being spent.
Mr. Jagana, for those watching us, this is the final take with me, Seni Marena. In the studio today is Muhammad Jagana, who is running for the presidency of the Gambia National Olympic Committee, along with other candidates. Mr. Jagana, you have significantly contributed to youth mentorship in various capacities, supporting the empowerment of this key demographic. What's your plan for youth development if elected as GNOC boss?
Shani, I know you also benefited from my mentorship. I remember those days from the Point newspaper, and I do. Not only me, but if you look at our team, we have put together a very strong team. We are very at community, grassroots level, and executive level. And we want to make sure not only the youth that are in sports, but youth in general would see us as an example. I already do that quite a lot, but I think at a national sports level, we want to look at programs that would help the youth, especially women. So we really are going to focus on our women, our strength, because we feel that women need to be more involved in sports at the board level, at the decision-making level, so that there will be more young women that will come on board on sporting.
Absolutely. Access to funding is one of the most critical issues affecting our sporting clubs. And your own second division club, I know, is facing financial challenges. And what is your blueprint to unlock more financing for athletes and other sporting disciplines? Because finance is key towards unlocking sport success.
So, one of our priorities is fund the dream, because we believe that every athlete has a dream to stand at that podium and carry the Gambian flag and get a gold, silver, or a bronze medal. We do want to partner with government and the private sector, and also look at other mechanisms of raising funds outside the traditional funding. So this is something that we think would help us raise the money. It's a major challenge because we don't have any professional leagues in the Gambia, because in Europe and America, that's the advantage. You have professional leagues whereby those leagues contribute a lot and it trickles down to the clubs. But I think in Gambia, we should be able to look at schemes and partnerships, even with institutions outside the Gambia, who might see Gambia as a potential place for them either to develop their sporting schemes or grow talent within the Gambia.
Okay, Mr. Jagana, we are almost at the tail end of this interview with you before I bring in my next guest. The 2028 Olympics will be held in Los Angeles. Are we seeing an increasing number of Gambian athletes for this Olympics that is expected to be held here in the United States if we have a new administration in the name of Mr. Jagana and his team?
Well, Team Yokandam, the whole ethos in them is glory and victory. We want to the current glory and victory that the past presidents and the past boards have done for the Gambia. And we believe that during this quadrennial, starting from January 2025 to LA 2028, we would get more athletes involved in Gambian sports, not only for the LA, but for the African Beach Games, African Youth Games. Senegal, Dakar will be hosting the Youth Olympic Games in 2026. We want to see more Gambians in there and in diverse sports. In Tunis, during the African Beach Games, a Gambian wrestler won the gold medal. We think there's potential. Yeah, I mean, these are things that people don't know. We think these are things that we need to communicate.
This is why, Mr. Jagana, I don't know, my other question will be your plans with the media, because media play a crucial role in terms of sport development. But we have not seen, effective partnership between the media and the GNOC. How do you intend to bridge that gap too? Like, going out with journalists, involving them in ally sport activities,
I'm saying, as you might be aware, even for Team Yokandam, we have a press conference tomorrow in Yokandam. Okay. And we've invited quite a handful of media. We created a WhatsApp group to disseminate the information. And part of our plan is the media is going to be key partners in our engagement. And we're going to make sure that all the associations would at least once a year have what we call Meet the Press. I don't know whether you can remember what we used to do at the Chamber of Commerce, Meet the Press.
Yeah.
We want to implement
Meet the Press, yes.
At the GNOC. It's voluntary for any association, but we hope and pray that all the associations would come out and explain to the press what activities they have done, what achievements they have reached, and what challenges they have faced, so that people can understand the challenges. People can look at the opportunities so that we can all grow the Gambian sporting fraternity together.
Okay. Mr. Jagana, that's almost the end of this interview. But before I let you go, tell those watching in 1 minute why they should choose Muhammad Jagana as the next president of the Gambian National Olympic Committee in the next coming Congress.
Then it's not about Muhammad Jagana, it's about team.
And your team, you have a team, you build a strong team.
I have built a strong team, a very diverse team, a team that has women leadership in it. And because of that, let me just give you a quick roll call. I am running for the president. Our first vice president is Kim Koli. Second vice president is Saul Fraser. Secretary General Fatim Baji. Treasurer Mas Manjang. And we have 3 other great board members, Momodu Sompo, Timothy Koli, and Jaran Senghor. So these are diverse people with great backgrounds that when we put it together, we are the best team compared to our opponents.
Okay. Many thanks for those watching. This is the final take with me, Seni Marena. In the studio is Muhammad M. Jagana, a businessman. I will call him a business executive and now into sport administration. Muhammad Jagana, many thanks for joining the final take.
Thank you, and we look forward to you starting the work for health in Seattle. That's a commitment.
Inshallah. We'll take a quick break, and then when we are back, we'll bring our next guest, Dr. Sulayman Njie, a political scientist and policy analyst in the United States. Many thanks, and then we'll be back shortly after this break.
Tune into the final take with MK Marina every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Hello and warm welcome to the final take with me, Seni Marena. Wherever you are tuning, this is our Saturday program from our virtual studios, live from Seattle. My next guest is Dr. Sulayman Njie, a political scientist and policy expert based in the United States. Sulayman will take us through the country's policy documents and the way forward and the political situations from a political lens ahead of the crucial 2026 presidential election. Sulayman Njie, welcome to the final take and many thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Sani. Appreciate it.
Let's get straight to business, focusing on the beam, on the Gambia's quest for development sustainability. The Barrow administration is advancing a rife of policies led by the new development cooperation frameworks to deliver its pledge to the support transitional justice and advance pathway for socio-economic growth in the country. From the quest for security reform to accelerating human rights, Banjul is taking steps to emerge from a difficult past and shape a robust democracy anchored on sound governance and economic development. But how it is faring and why is effective policy creation and implementation a crucial cornerstone? Let's get answers from Dr. Sulayman Njie, a senior program analyst with the United States Agency for International Development Office under the Inspector General of the USAID, OIG, where he conducts inspections and evaluation of operations and programs for development cooperation covering the USAID, the Inter-American Foundation, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and the U.S. Africa Foundation. Many thanks for your time, Dr. Njie. Let's start with the public sector accountability and drive to strengthen actions against corruption. We have seen and are witnessing establishment of commissions of inquiry as a prop into local councils and municipalities, revealing a massive insight into the misappropriation of public funds. How important are these independent investigation in unveiling misuse of taxpayers' revenue?
Thank you, Sani. That was very nice introduction from you. As you know, you and I had this conversation years ago about my take on commissions, right? I think some commissions are warranted, and some of them is a total waste of our resources, right? We have the Attorney General's office to conduct some of these things. But looking at some of these commissions, what I see coming out of them is that our state is in a really big mess, right? So just recently, just looking at the commission for the local government, you just realize, and I've been following that. One of my childhood friends is actually running it. Patrick was a classmate of mine. But just looking at it, you just realize how unprepared we are for governance when it comes to like running institutions, right? There's a lot of people tend to do it the Gambian way, friends hiring friends without due process, and also the level of corruption is just something else. But my bigger question here is, why do we even need all these commissions to begin with? Right? What is the whole point, right? We can start from the Johnny Commission, coming down to the your commission, that is the Constitutional Review Commission, and also the TRRC. The TRRC. I think all of those things were good in giving us an insight into what happened during the last administration. And I think without those commissions, especially the TRRC, I don't think many people would have believed all the things that happened, right? But then the question is, how does the state, because it's really hard for the state to prosecute itself, because the state is a continuum. It's a continuous process that really doesn't stop. So what we realize is that at the end of these commissions, you have recommendations, and the state, for the most part, is sitting on some of them. And there's also cherry picking about who deserves justice and who doesn't. So there's a whole range of issues here. But at the end of the day, the question is, what is the point of these commissions? What are we getting from these commissions?
Yeah, Sulayman, these commissions, there is a lot of money invested in this commission. And when you look at the end of the day, thinks that these commissions has failed, not because of the work they do, but because the government failed to implement the recommendations of this commission. So do you think that's a wise policy of the government to spend millions of taxpayers' money or donor money into setting up this commission? You know, at the end of the day, they are not implementing what the commissions are saying. We have seen the TRRC white paper recommendation that calls for the prosecution of some of those who commit hideous human rights violations in the country, and they are walking scot-free in the streets of Banjul. As a policy expert, what do you think about this?
So we can look at it from two angles, right? We can look at it from the angle of the state implementing recommendations, and we can also look at it from the political angle, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason why the state has no reason to implement any of these recommendations, right? If it doesn't work for the state, it doesn't work for the state. Because what we realize is that there's a lot of recycling.
But why establishing this commission in the first place if you know you are not going to implement the recommendations?
Sure, to shut people up, right? The whole point, for example, what happened in Faraba, right? Yeah. They set up a commission for that thing too, right? So there's a commission for everything, because the point of these commissions is to turn these things into an appendage, because people don't have the stamina to see through justice, right? They don't have the stamina to fight for all of these things. So what do? You set up a commission. Once they come up with their recommendations, you put it on the shelf.
Wow.
The state has no reason to implement any of this politically, right? Why would Barrow implement the recommendations from your commission, the CRC? He has no reason to, right? Because he didn't run on that mandate. His mandate, he's elected based on the current constitution that we have. Gambians are not like out in the streets saying we need a new constitution. They don't.
But Sulayman, that was a political commitment he made, that if he is elected, he is going to bring in a new constitution, because the constitution he ran, was a bad one.
Sure. He brought in a new constitution. It's the opposition who don't want to accept it, because what the CRC did was to provide a recommendation. So now it's up to the government to decide which version of it they're going to take. It's a recommendation. Let's not take this as though this is a Bible or is the Quran, right? Yeah. These are recommendations. So the reality has to set it. The state would have to do what the state has to do to survive. So Barrow is not going to go and implement things that is going to go against his own political interests. No politician is going to do that. So the question is, why isn't the opposition? Because this is my question. The opposition is saying that, especially on some of the UDP people and some in civil society, that Barrow will implement the constitution, the recommendation as is. No, he doesn't have to do any of that. He doesn't owe anyone any of that, because again, it's about his own political survival. So we have to be realistic. Which part of this constitution do we want and which part we don't? Let them have conversations. But if you threaten Barron, we're not going to accept any of it, okay, he's just going to be like, fine, have at it. Let's continue with the same constitution that we have. And nothing is going to come out of it. Nothing at all.
But look at it. As I said earlier on, these campaign promises that the coalition government then made to Gambian people. It's like a contract between the coalition government and the Gambian people that we're going to unearth what happened, and so there's accountability. We're going to give you a new constitution. So these are policy statements they make. At the end of the day, what happened? They failed to implement it. And here you are saying because Barrow is trying to survive politically, he might not be willing to implement those recommendations as contained in the CRC and also the TRRC reports.
Well, from out of the gate, you're talking about a coalition as if there's any. They literally destroyed the coalition from the beginning.
Yeah, the coalition got destroyed around 2018-19. Yeah.
Well before that. To me, it was 2017. The moment we basically got in, literally there was no coalition from the beginning. There were also a lot of things about it, 3 years, whatever. Yeah. What happened? The same people in that coalition, especially the ones with the power, decided that no, they, the then foreign minister basically said that anybody who asked for the 3 years the 3 years mandate, he was probably going to sue you. Because again, this is the thing. And he got a point. Constitutionally, Barrow has the right to do this thing, to stay for 5 years. That's not the question. But now Barrow has learned He understands power, and he has it. So basically, the same thing he reneged on the 3 years mandate, he's using the same kind of tactics to move forward. And again, it's about survival. Politicians can tell you a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean they have to do it unless there's a penalty. And there's no penalty for Barrow not bringing in a new constitution. I don't think so. I don't think he's going to lose any votes by not bringing in a new constitution. I'm just speaking as a political scientist here. Looking at it from a policy point of view, I think it will make a lot of sense for us to, even if we don't have a new constitution, because I was totally against the whole drafting a new constitution. For me, let's just amend what we had, right? You know that the Jamaica government...
No, but Sulayman, the 1997 constitution has been butchered 54 times. You know, it has been amended. It's so bad. It has given the presidency easy right to win election, no term limit, no nothing. And you are here saying, you know, at least we should go out with that with amendments. I think this is the same thing Halifa Sallah said so, but you know, they didn't listen. They went ahead and, you know, and make a whole new constitution just because they want to get rid of the 1997 constitution. Why do you think we should amend instead of having a full a constitution made?
Yeah, I just want to first address that. I think mentally for many Gambians, I'm not speaking for the majority, but at least many Gambians, a new constitution would have basically been a divorce from Jammeh. And mentally, we needed that break, right? I think that was necessary. But 54 amendments, all you needed to do was to just change it. And let's look at it, for example, the age limit. They changed that. Why? Because it was necessary. It was important for the parliament to do so. Why couldn't they do it for the other stuff? There's no reason to bring in a new constitution. In my view, it was a total waste of money to do so, right? That doesn't mean that now we have it, we're going to do anything about it. But from that point, I just didn't see the point of actually establish a whole commission to come up with a new constitution. We could have actually just amended what we had. And we can still do that. We can still do it. There's nothing stopping the parliament and the National Assembly and the executive to do that. There's nothing stopping us. So, you know, it is what it is.
But Sulayman, Doctor, right now there is a lot of disagreement with regards to the new constitution because there have been a lot of changes from the previous constitution, 2020 constitution versus the 2024. Do you see a possibility of this new Barrow constitution passing through the parliament, going to the referendum?
It's probably going to be hard. And I think if Barrow and UDP can come to a consensus, we could move this forward. But UDP basically said no, there no even one comma should be changed, right? That doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't, right? You don't have any power here. Barrow has the power. And if this doesn't pass, he doesn't care either. It doesn't hurt him. He still has all the power. So in politics, look at what Rahim Malik Law has been able to do in Banjul with working with Barrow, right? Rahim Malik Law is a really good diplomat, right? She would agree with Barrow whenever she needs to, what benefits Banjul, and then she will fight with Barrow, you know, basically to the end. I think if UDP can come together with Barrow, if really the goal is to have a new constitution that is going to benefit the country, it has to be, especially in a fractured system, we need to come together and find a common consensus where we can agree on things. It doesn't always have to be we're against, we're for this or whatever. Sometimes that's what politics is, it's compromise. Politics is about, you've seen that here in the United States, a lot of compromises happen. So you cannot just say what these are recommendations from a commission. They're just recommendations, that's it. Barrow holds all the cards. Honestly, if I look at it, I'm like, Barrow is actually too nice. Because what is the whole point of actually tabling this constitution all the time when you can just shelf it and just move on? Because most Gambians totally forgot about this. They're worried about their next meal, not some new constitution. And again, I am all for changing what we have, right? Whether that's through a new constitution or amending, you know, some of the stuff Jam made. But now we have to talk about the politics of it. No politician is crazy enough to support something that's going to end their political career. That's not going to happen. It's just
but why promising something that you're not going to fulfill, Sulayman? I think that's a dishonesty on the part of our politicians.
Well, that's politicians everywhere. Again, they had a coalition. That is not a coalition government anymore. That was a different battle. Like, that was a whole different time. They promised many things that they did not do. Why? They know. I don't. when they were all together as a group, they decided to renege on a whole lot of stuff. So why should Barrow, again, politicians will only act, for the most part, on things that they know for a fact is going to affect their power. There is no reason why Barrow should care about any of these things, because there is no one going to hold him accountable. The people are not. He's not going to lose elections because of a new constitution. So why should he? Why? So I think that is why he has nothing to lose, right? We got to look at it from that angle. I'm looking at it from a purely politician point of view. That's why the people on the other side should come together, let them huddle. If the point is to have a new constitution, reach a compromise. You're not going to get everything you want. So that's politics. You have to negotiate. You have to come to a compromise. And then
what is the role of our institutions in this regard? Because we have institutions in the country that, a role is to ensure that, politicians are put into check. But, what are they doing?
Well, again, institutions are as good as the people, right? So some of these, let's look at the third sector, for example, the civil society, right?
Yeah.
Many in the civil society, I think, let me retract it. Jammeh really destroyed how people view politics in the Gambia, how people engage one another in the public sphere, right? One of the things, there are three things that Jammeh really did that we really still have not grappled with. The opposition, their focus is on how they can stop Barrow. In the Jammeh era, that was really what they were angling for. The journalists have all turned into activists. They all became activists during the Jammeh era. People in the civil society also became activists. And I think all three entities, the journalists were supposed to hold the state accountable, the civil society, and the opposition, all of them actually are dealing with Barrow the same way. The problem is Barrow is not Yahya Jammeh, and people know that.
So you think there should be a shift, from how we handle Jammeh, to how we are handling Barrow?
Oh, without a doubt, because they're very different people, and people know that. The stuff people cared about during the Jammeh era, like the human rights violations, democracy, all those buzzwords, Barrow really is not Jammeh in that way. That doesn't mean that he's not doing some of those things, because again, you give anybody power, they're going to use it. That's just the reality of it. So Barrow is using power whenever it suits him, right? But Barrow is not Yahya Jammeh. So all of these entities, I think the civil society, because I see some people in civil society, instead of just being contrarian, attacking Barrow, they can just go talk to the guy, have a conversation. Barrow is not Yahya Jammeh in that way. The media too need to find a way to get out of that Jammeh mindset where they can actually start engaging the state in a meaningful way rather than just holding the state accountable as in contrarian opposition. And again, Jammeh really destroyed our brains, and we're wired to be reactionaries. And I think Barrow is so smart. He understands this. Every now and then he's going to do something so ridiculous and profound. Everybody will just throw their arms. Oh my God, Barrow, just like when, recently he talked about, NPP is his, child, and his kids are
and he's gonna hand over power to his grandkids.
Yeah, grandkids, right? And all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is dictatorship." Because again, we're wired to be reactionary because of the Jammeh era. If we weren't, and Barrow understands this, he will push so far, and then of course he's gonna get a reaction, and people are gonna be like, "He didn't say anything wrong." But again, the people in the social media bubble, that is really how they interact with Barrow. So there should be a shift in the way we interact with the state, because Barrow is not Yahya Jammeh. These are two fundamentally different people.
So how? So as a policy expert, how do you think we should, handle Barrow, from Jammeh's experience, like in terms of his policy pronouncements, in terms of his statements, and so?
I think you can engage the state. You don't just have to oppose whatever the government does or the administration, right? If you look at, for example,
those opposing the Barrow administration believe that they are holding him accountable. That's why they are opposing the state.
Yeah, when it suits them. So look at the parliament, for example. Whenever there is a thing has to do with increasing their money or getting nice haftans and, and nice suits and fare and money and all that stuff, they don't oppose Barrow. They only oppose Barrow on things that are really, in my view, some of them are just basically mundane. So just today, something just popped into my inbox, right? So I think 9 government agencies, entities, are trying to get an exemption to where
they did already from procurement. We'll talk about that. That's a very dangerous policy pronouncement, Sulayman.
It is, but where is the opposition? The opposition is more focused on Barano running in 2026.
Yeah.
Where is the opposition? These are serious issues, right? These are really fundamental, because if you look at what the state does, the government does a lot of contracting and buying and procurement. That's literally the bread and butter of the government. Now the government is telling you, no, we should exempt them from all of this stuff, right? We just had the IEC.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Yeah, we just had the report that came out about the IEC, and now you're giving an IEC an exemption, right? Yeah. It's insane. But where's the opposition? The opposition is more focused on these silly things, in my view. When Barrett goes to the operators of the Gambia and talk about, Sula Bidiko and all that nonsense, and then bam, all of a sudden everybody is hula hoop or whatever. And when he talks about, handing over government to his kids or whatever, and then, oh my God, it's dictatorship. But we're forgetting the important things. What Barrow is literally doing right now, what the state is doing. Where is the parliament? Where is the opposition? They should channel their energy to some of these things. That doesn't mean they cannot talk about 2020. I think you can do all of these things. It's not like an either or thing. But I think the energy is misplaced in some instances. And I think for civil society too, this is not all civil society, but I think some in the civil society need to also find a way to just engage the state in meaningful ways, right? And in dialogue. Dialogue is important. Rahim Malik Law is a good template. And I think people should really see what she's been doing. She does what benefits the people. That's it. So if that means she's going to be best friends with Barrow, she doesn't care.
Sulayman, you often write, very critical issues about political situations back home. Recently, there has been a lot of corruption scandals, from the Port Authority to recently to the IEC. As a political analyst, do you think that this rampant corruption will have an impact on the 2026 presidential election? Do you think the opposition can capitalize on this, and gain votes from masses that, look, the government you voted is very corrupt, giving them another mandate will even make things worse?
I hope so. I hope they could make that argument, but I don't think the opposition is disciplined enough to mount that challenge, because they're just jumping from issue to issue without focus, right? And these are serious issues. But I don't think the opposition is that super different from Barrow. Because Barrow, NPP is just a faction of UDP. That's how I see it. I'm sorry. It's a faction of UDP. And people don't think, and I think the Gambian is also wide in a way where we don't even think corruption is bad. We have to be honest here. We don't. But
Sulayman, you and I know corruption kills. Corruption is bad. With corruption, you cannot have access to basic needs and services.
Yeah, but you and
because funds that need to be channeled into those areas are embezzled, by corrupt officials.
Sure, but you and I don't have a vote. We're in America, and the other people who care about. The guy in Diabugo or in Jaring, why should they care about that? Like, they really don't. They actually want their kids to have access to that, because the whole point of government in Gambia, the way we see it, is basically everybody get in, you get your cut. Because I think people in the government, and even in the opposition, they view the state as a vehicle to get money, because that's the only avenue. If you look at the entire middle class in the Gambia, except for the ones who get remittances, was created by the state. So people really don't care, because if you think about it this way, I think the state, people in government realize that this is a failed state. So you don't have to do anything. You get in, you get wealthy, and you get the hell out. That's the whole point. The point is not to improve the lives and livelihoods of the people. And the opposition is not any different. When they come in, that's exactly what they're going to do, because it's their time to eat. And that's what they told us.
But these oppositions are not in the government, Sulayman. You have to be fair to them,
They're in the parliament. That's the government. They're part of the government. They are in the parliament. And when they were in government, what exactly did they do? It wasn't any different from what Barrow is doing. And they justified it. It was their time to eat. And they're eating good. And they ate good until they were kicked out. We have to be honest. So what is the opposition proposing that is different from Barrow? You have to give me an alternative. I'm not seeing a viable alternative to butter. I'm sorry, I am not. That doesn't mean
then our country is in mess. If you, as a policy expert and a political scientist, do not believe both the opposition and Barrow to run our affairs, then we are in a problem, Suleiman.
Of course. I mean, it's a failed state, and everybody knows it. Any serious person in government, what did they do? The coalition collapsed. What did they do? Everybody brought in their cousins or whatever and their best friends into government to eat because some of them suffered. That was the whole point of it. That's the whole point of government. Because again, we have an economy that is not good enough to provide jobs for the masses. The only way to create in the middle class since the Jawara time was through the state. All of Fajara, all of Banjul, and all of these places were created by the state. So people see the state as a vehicle to get wealthy. So people don't care about corruption. I'm sorry, not in Gambia. We, the online people, acting like we're enlightened or whatever, we might care. If we were in government, I'm not even sure we'll do anything different because it's about survival. This is a very poor country. People have to do whatever they have to do to survive. And that's the reality of it. So the opposition, I'm not saying if they come in, they might not do these things. I'm just basing it based on the last time they were in power, and they're still in power. They still run municipalities. They run, the National Assembly, they have a huge crowd there. But whenever it comes to Barrow spending, when it comes to spending on themselves, they always vote with Barrow. They always do, because it benefits them. So again, this is the problem we have. We have a failed state, and we need to realize that, or at least we have all of the hallmarks of a failed state. And people in government understand that they need to do whatever they need to do to survive because it's a sinking ship. It's just a matter of time. So I'm sorry, but I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I really don't see, because statecraft is hard. It is really, really hard to run a country. It's tough. You can make promises. Once you start implementing some of these policies, you understand the limit. Unless we start inventing new Gambians, that might change things. But until then, we're stuck with this.
For those watching, this is the final take with me, Seni Marena. In the studio is Dr. Sulayman Njie, a political scientist and policy analyst, dwelling on the country's policy directions and the way forward. Mr. Njie, you have a strong background in development cooperation, especially engaging with the U.S. agencies and organizations, leading policy execution in the Homeland Department, among others. As a global policy analyst, what can Gambia do to get things right in terms of effective policy implementation?
Yeah, and I want to clarify too. I'm not here speaking on behalf of the U.S. federal government.
Yes,
I'm not.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's a silver bullet, right? There is no real silver bullet. I don't think policy is our problem. I think most of our issues have to do with implementation and evaluation of some of our programs that we have. But I don't think our problem is policy per se, because if you look at some of our policies, they're very sound. These are really sound policies. The question is, everything we do end up failing because there's no sustainability mechanism in part of this. When I was doing my doctorate, I spent a lot of time in Gambia looking at the microfinance programs in the country. And I looked at the Visakas. How did the Visakas fail? Very simple.
Those are the banks in the village. I remember
exactly.
That. Yeah.
But why did they fail? So
they were effective. Growing up in Kudang, I remember we have a small Visaka in our village center, and they were doing well. What happened to them?
Exactly. What happened to them? So they end up hiring their own family members who graduated from Pagalinding grade 9 with no accounting background, nothing to do with money. They steal it, everything collapses, and nobody holds anybody accountable. Carrying along. So of course, nobody's going to hold anyone accountable. That's the problem we have. There's no sustainability mechanism. There's no accountability, none of that stuff. So I don't think policies are our problem. Our problems are like implementation of these policies and also evaluating them to see how effective they are. So this is the problem, I think. Unless we figure these things out, I think we're going to be going back to the same stuff over and over and over again without no end in sight.
Suleiman, my next question is, human capital has been often described as one of the biggest assets of public policy ventures. Where is Gambia lacking in terms of building a robust and incentivized human capital base?
Yeah, if you look at the countries that have huge skilled people. Like, look at India, look at China, the Singapores. The way you do this is you have to invest in your human beings, the kids in the school system. And if you look at the school system we have in Gambia, so in America, you live in Seattle, so the high schools in America, in urban America, you have the high school to prison pipeline, right? So Black kids and minorities would end up, many of them, in jail and in the criminal justice system because there is no viable alternative for them. In the Gambia, we have the high school to nowhere pipeline, so that's why the kids would have to take the back way and all that stuff. So without investing in developing these kids, we're gonna have that gap. The shortage is gonna be there, right? We cannot compare to other countries, like even Senegal. It's a whole different ballgame. Look at all the artisans in Gambia. Look at all the skilled laborers in Gambia. They're all from other countries. Why? Because again, we are not producing enough of them in the country. And our education system, just look at the grade 12 results every year. You realize, and just go on Facebook. Facebook, to me, is the microcosm of the Gambia, especially the Western Gambia comment section. Is the microcosm of the Gambia, because you understand the Gambian psyche, but you also understand our limitation. Many of these people, just basic English language, we can even write properly, right? Years ago, I run a writing workshop at the University of the Gambia, and we also have, at the university, some of the people in attendance were actually law students. And some of them now, I see them practicing in the Gambia. But interestingly, many of these people couldn't even construct basic sentences. Every job has a tool that you use. If you're a doctor, you have your scalpel. If you're a carpenter, you have your hammer and all that stuff. As a lawyer, your skill is language. If you cannot express yourself and write properly, how can you even write a brief? And some of these people now, I'm seeing them in the law, as lawyers in the country, right? How do they even write those briefs, right? So again, the problem is we need to harness, right? This, there's a lot of talent in the Gambia, but we need to develop talent. You nurture talent. Talent is a skill. Any skill can be learned, right? But if you don't use it, you lose it. So many people don't even have this skill set. So to go back to your question, the best way to harness human capital, I think for now, for us, we need to start from the basics. We really need to train our people. I think they're doing an okay job at GDDI.
GDDI now is changed into university. It's called University of Science,
USEC or something. USEC or something. And I think that's good, right? But we need to put a lot of students through that, because our focus has mostly been on just basic. People just go on to high school, graduating or whatever, without any skill set, right? We need to incorporate this. When like what they had at St. Peter's. When I was at St. Teresa's Middle School, we actually had that too, like woodworking, carpentry, metal work. These are real skills, right? But
technical drawing,
Exactly, yeah. And you went to Amity, you all had a whole disciplined regime. I think that's lacking in our education system. We need to find a way to develop our, the kids, give them the proper education.
Yeah. So you talk about, I will talk about the education policy, because this is very important. A nation cannot develop without a strong education. And then you have said it, we have seen, students from high school going into university and graduating, they cannot even have job. What's wrong with our education policy? Do we need to revitalize our education? Do we need a total overhaul of our education policy and look at it holistically? Because there is a lot of emphasis on science and technology. You are in the US. The US is developed because they put a lot of emphasis on STEM.
That's correct.
So what is the way forward for our education policy? Do we need an overhaul of the entire education policy and think in outwards?
Right. I'm not sure if we need a whole entire overhaul, but we need some tweaks. Because some years ago, you remember, we went from, the fast track program. I don't know if you remember the fast track program.
Yeah, the 6-3 something.
Yeah, whatever, right? So if you look at the Gambians who graduated sixth form before 1998, right? Those people some of them don't even have a college degree, but they're probably some of the most competent people in the country. They speak good English, they're good at science and math and all that stuff. When the fast track came, I think the focus shifted from quality to quantity. So we shifted from how many students, good students we were graduating, to basically how many students were graduating, right? So now the measurement, the barometer is more about, it has more to do with how many students we're graduating rather than the quality. We need to go back to producing, thinking about the quality of education we're providing to our students. I mean, you're from the rural Gambia. In many parts of rural Gambia, what you have is a bunch of unqualified teachers, right? Because many qualified teachers don't want to live there, right? So many of our teachers are unqualified, and these are the people we are relying on to basically, I mean, I know some people
our kids,
right, and these are the people who are gonna educate the next generation of Gambian. I think we actually have a whole, I would say, a whole entire lost generation of Gambians who I don't think we've actually failed as a society, right? And those people, what are we gonna do? I think the government should start thinking about it now, because if we do not, we're going to have a huge problem on our hands, right? Gambia is a very youthful country. And this is the time for the government to start thinking about fixing some of those, because if they don't, crime is going to go, crime is going to go.
It's already up.
Yeah, it's already up. But I'm actually surprised it's not as high as other countries, in a similar situation, right? So these things are all things that the government should start thinking about, And the whole thing comes back to the basics. We need to get the basics right. Early childhood education, invest properly in education, right? I looked at the budget today. I just saw the budget today.
Yeah, over 50 million, 10 million has been added on top of the previous 42 million, which was allocated, billion, which was allocated in the 2023 budget estimate. So we have 54 billion, allocated for this.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And you look at the budget, you see where our priorities are, right? We have almost, $1.5 billion or so going to the State House, right?
Yeah, the office of the president.
For administrative purposes, who doesn't even serve, right? So, again, we need to go back to the basics. What did we do right when we had the common entrance? That we produced so many quality Gambians, not many, but they were quality. What can we do to learn from that? And then use that as our benchmark, and then think about quantity. But I think we need to go back to the basics. So whether we need an overhaul or not, I'm not sure, but we need some tweaks are definitely needed.
Dr. Njie, we are running out of time. The topics are so interesting. I can have you on and on, because this is an area that you are so passionate about. But before I let you go, I will ask you two questions. The United States, went to election last week, and they voted in a new president. So I just want to hear from you, what implications will the new government policy have on Africa? Because already I have seen the USSCI, issuing a new notice, for immigrants who want to be neutralized US citizens. What implication will the new Trump administration policy on Africa impact our relationship?
So you mean Africans in the United States, or
yes, Africans in the yes.
So you're of course going to see a lot of strict immigration rules. I mean, just like the rule you just mentioned that came out a couple of days ago or so. And actually, I used to work in that office, Department of Homeland Security. What you're going to see is a huge shift. And so one of those policies is, for example, back in the day, you come here, you would say you're an American citizen or whatever, and you still get a job, even though you're not. You can still go through the process and you can become an American citizen. Homeland Security is saying, no, not anymore. If we find that out, you're automatically disqualified, right? And we have, I don't know the numbers, but there are a lot of Africans here who stay in America is not regularized, right? Those people are going to face a lot of problems. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? So I don't know to what extent is going to affect folks who are here illegally, but undocumented, but they haven't broken any other laws, like criminal laws, because immigration law is a civil matter, right? It's really not a criminal offense, right? I mean, not civil, but it's like a misdemeanor or something. It's not really criminal. But what is going to happen to those people? Because in the past, the government really wouldn't care about you that much, right? But again, it depends on where you stay. If you live in Texas, where the state is actually going to cooperate with, the Trump administration, I mean, you could really face some really serious issues. If you live in a state like yours in Seattle, in Washington State, where the state really would not cooperate. It would not.
It's a democratic.
Right?
It's a century
it would not
state.
cooperate.
It's a century state. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, it depends on where you live and the situation. But the whole thing about a mass deportation of 12 million people is just unfeasible. It's not realistic. It's not feasible at all. It's just absolutely unrealistic. The government don't have the capacity. They don't have the manpower to even do that. To do that, the government has to spend billions and billions of dollars, just recruit new lawyers, all that stuff, immigration judges and all that stuff. I don't see that happening. But I could see many people's stay here in jeopardy, especially if you want to go through the whole green card process and you've misstated something in the past. You're probably going to have a lot of problems. We're going to see those things going up. Yep.
Sulayman, thank you very much. But one final question: we just a couple of weeks ago, the Spanish government signed, a policy with the government of the Gambia in terms of transfer of labor, like Gambians interested to go and work in Spain, and then what do you think about this new government policy of sending our young people to Spain to work in Spain as part of their cooperation with the Spanish? Does this new policy have any implication? If you are aware of it?
Sure, I am very aware of it, and I've seen online. I'm gonna go against the grain here. I think it's a good idea, because number one, we don't have the jobs in the Gambia, so the kids are still gonna take the back way, Barca or Barca. Why not just make it legal, right? Give them those opportunities to travel. This is nothing new. Mexico has that agreement with the United States, where migrant farmers come to the United States and work here seasonally and then go back home. Some other Central American countries have the same thing. So I think if we can, because we don't have the jobs in the Gambia, that's the reality of it. There are no jobs in the Gambia. So if we can sign these agreements with Spain, I'm more worried about countries like Saudi Arabia, where they just absolutely horrible human rights violations that are going to be met on our people, right? These are very racist countries, right? That doesn't mean Spain is not racist, but Spain has a better legal framework to protect legal migrants compared to illegal. So I think it's a win-win situation for us, because we have a lot of young people who don't have jobs. Give them that, and they can also come back with some skills to revamp our agriculture sector, right? We now see a lot of young Gambians going back home to start farming and all that stuff. So I think we can learn from here. We send our young people overseas to go to universities, right? I studied here. I spent, half of my life in the United States, going to school and whatnot. So if we can leverage this, right, send those Gambians legally, right, to go, because they're going to go, right? They're going to take the back way. Everybody in Gambia knows people who've taken the back way. It's Barca or Barca, right? So why not just make it legal, give them that avenue, the outlet. And I know every time the government does something, we're always thinking about what is negative about it. But we also have to look at the reality of it. We just do not have enough jobs in the country for those young people to go and work, right? So that doesn't mean that young people are going to go and farm in Sapo or Jahalipacha, but farming in Sapo and Jahalipacha is not the same. Paying in dollars and euros are two different things. So at least the young people can have access and a proper way of migrating to Spain, working there seasonally, and then coming back, our economy is
legal way.
It's highly driven by remittance. It's a remittance economy. Without remittances, the economy collapses. So these people are going to add more to the remittance pool, right? Until we can actually have enough jobs in the country for people to work. It wouldn't make any sense to keep all those young people there when we have access to other markets and other countries where we can work and then bring in the skill set and whatnot. My worry is just Saudi Arabia and the Arab countries. Those ones really worry me a lot, like a whole lot.
Yes. For those watching, this is the final take, and then we're going to draw the curtain here. Maybe I will have Dr. Sulayman on an exclusive. I host two shows, the final take and the big interview. I think I will get you for the big interview so that I can give you a whole hours to dwell on all these important topics we are discussing. Many thanks. That's an exclusive conversation there with Dr. Sulayman Njie, a political scientist and policy expert here in the United States. Dr. Njie, many thanks for joining this conversation this morning.
Yeah, thank you. And I also want to say that I'm really proud of you for this, when you first came here, we had this conversation about doing a YouTube show, and I've seen where you've, taken this and whatnot. And I'm really, really proud of you, man. Keep doing the good work and, bringing our voices to the fore. I appreciate you, MK.
Yeah, but please come back to Twitter. People say they missed you on Twitter, so you have to come back. You know what happened yesterday? Don Lemon, the CNN guy, he quit Twitter along with a lot of people.
No kidding.
Blaming Elon Musk of unregulated space. So, but that's it. Another topic of discussion. Many thanks for those watching us. This is the final take with me, Seni Marina. In the studio is Dr. Sulayman Njie. Dr. Njie, thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you, Seni.
Tune into the final take with MK Marina every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.